This video is instructions for how to complete lesson 1.2, Origin Stories in Big History. Obviously, I assume you know how to get to this point already, so I'm not starting back at the main timeline. But I just want to, before we click into the lesson, I want to talk about this because there are a lot of items in this lesson, and it might seem a bit daunting, a bit overwhelming, but I just wanted to talk about that first. It begins with a video, so that's pretty simple. Same rules, we'll talk about that in just a minute. But the main activity is associated with this worksheet called Origin Stories, and I'll have this printed out for you. And what you'll see here is a table, and the table is going to be used to compare these different origin stories: the modern scientific origin story, the Chinese, the Judeo-Christian, the Iroquois, the Mayan, the Greek, the Zulu, the Yafik. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Okay, so there's just those 8 origin stories. And what it's asking you to do is tell us, how does the modern scientific origin story explain the source of the world? How does the Chinese origin story explain this? And then the next one, the originator of the world. Who started this world? How did the earth form? What is the age of the earth? What were the first life forms? All of these different origin stories address most of these. There may be some that they don't mention it. And if that's the case, it's okay to say, didn't mention it. Obviously, you need to work a little bit harder than just saying, didn't say anything. You need to complete it. Most of them will say something about all of these. So just keep that in mind. So that's the bulk of the activity related to this particular lesson 1.2. But in order to complete that article or that table, you're going to have to read a bunch of these articles, and that's what all these others are. You'll notice article. This is Origin Stories Introduction. You should read that because it talks about what an origin story even is. This article, the modern scientific, this one, the Chinese, the Judeo-Christian, the Iroquois, the Mayan, the Greek, the Zulu, the Yafik. And there's also an article about cosmology and faith that I'd like you to read as well. I mentioned in a previous one. Oh, so we're not doing this DQ notebook. I should have listed that as optional. I'll do that now. So that one is optional. So we're not going to do that. But even though this looks like a lot, that's what we're looking at. It's just a bunch of different articles that are all going to be used to complete this table. Okay, so we'll click in there. And as is usual, okay, read the intro up here, read the lesson outcomes, and then go through the process. Big history, big questions, H2. Read the purpose, read the process, read the summary. In this case, there's not the key ideas, so you don't, that's okay, but you do have to still answer the questions in conceptual thinking based on the watching of this video. So as I always suggest, read all of this stuff first, and then watch the video, and then answer any questions that you need the information from the video to answer. Then go to the next one, Origin Stories Introduction. So here's the introduction to origin stories. Here is the modern scientific origin story article. And again, you'll read through the purpose and the process. One thing I want to point out, I don't know if I've mentioned it yet in these videos, but whenever you see an article, there's going to be somewhere mentioned, sorry, let me just find it, these 3 close reads. Okay, that is the way that Big History likes you to take notes. I am not requiring that. So when it gives you some instructions, for example, it says it right here, where it says preview, capturing gist. That's because in that 3 close read document, that's the first reading. The first reading is about capturing gist. The second reading is like reading all of the article and taking notes. And then the third reading is to answer some of these bigger questions, and you read it a third time if you need to answer those questions. So sometimes you're going to see stuff about that 3 close read document or about capturing gist. And just know that you don't have to complete your notes the way that Big History wants you to. I'm okay with you taking notes in a way that makes sense to you. But again, remember the requirements. Each time you begin a new lesson, you should put lesson 1.2 origin stories. You should put the first activity, big questions, H2 video, okay? And then you should take those notes. Then you should list origin stories introduction. You should read through it. You should take the notes based on your reading. This one is, again, the first one is just an introduction. You should read that. The second one is the origin story modern scientific. That's the very first one on this worksheet, that table. The next ones are all, this is the article collection, right? The Chinese, the Judeo-Christian, the Iroquois, the Mayan. Again, all the ones that you're going to see up here. And by all means, read through, again, the purpose and the process, taking some notes, making note of the article collection as the activity, the purpose, and the process. Okay, and then there is, I think it's the last section, cosmology and faith. You'll put that in your notes. You'll read the purpose and process. You'll look through these key ideas in conceptual thinking and summary. You'll take those notes, and then you'll actually read that article. Again, ignoring this 3 close reads here. And then the DQ notebook, again, that's the one that I'm not requiring. So that's it. That's it for lesson 1.2 anyway. And again, just remember the key thing here is you're completing this table and you're getting a sense for how these different origin stories deal with these big questions. So if you have any questions about that, obviously you can let me know. But that concludes lesson 1.2, origin stories.